Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debi Silber, and today's guest is Rachell Kitchen. Rachell Kitchen, CEO of Level Up for Life Coach LLC, is a survivor of extreme violence, divorce, and drastic family health issues who shares her personal experience to empower women to move from chaos to clarity. Speaker, author, life and transition coach, and former career woman, Rachell's faced concentrated chaos from the murder of her father, family health issues, divorce, and more. Now she speaks, gives interviews, and has unique, transformative programs to inspire women to make powerful choices so that they can create balance, find solutions, get relief, and have joy in the chaos. Rachell believes you have the power to transform beyond where you think you can go. And trauma can have us hit rock bottom. But what happens when we have a few traumas all at once? You know the saying, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, and you're about to meet one very strong woman and very healed woman. Here's today's guest, Rachell Kitchen. Okay, everybody, you are just in for a treat today because we have Rachell Kitchen here, and she's going to be talking about betrayal by 1,000 cuts. So welcome, Rachell.
Thank you, Debi, so much. I so appreciate you having me on, and I love the work that you are doing. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And of course, everybody listening is saying, what the heck does she mean, 1,000 cuts? Can we just dive in and start right there?
Absolutely. Here's what was happening. Now, within a few short years, a little over 2 years, here's what was happening. My dad was murdered. He was beaten in the streets, and he died from his injuries. When all of that was happening, and as chaotic as that was, I was blindsided by brutal betrayal and divorce. Ultimately, got divorced. Mm-hmm. Throw in the mix my mom being diagnosed with cancer. My youngest child was leaving the nest and moving across the country. Then sprinkle in a few breast cancer scares of my own. And quite honestly, I was filled with self-doubt, despair, felt like I was stuck in a rut. And each of those big events, as I'm sure your listeners can attest to, any one of those, there's a series of betrayals that are a part of that. Mm-hmm. And I just, after next thing happened, the next thing happened, and the next thing happened, it just really did feel like a series of betrayals by 1,000 cuts. It was coming at me from every angle. And I really just felt victimized. I felt unworthy. I felt down on myself. Girl, I was literally stuck in my granny panties and my frayed pajamas for months because the betrayal and the transitions and all of the crap that was happening to me was too much. It was just too much. And I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was literally just dying a slow death from a series of betrayals, big and small. And then there was the story that I was telling myself too around those betrayals.
Yeah, and I want to dive into what you were actually feeling during that time, but I also want to dive into the story. What were you telling yourself? I mean, how did you eventually make sense and meaning out of it? I want to get there, but yeah, bring us back to that time.
Girl, it was bad. Now, I could be functional if I had to be, but I really was in a low place, just a very low place. I even had physical pain because of this.
And that's really common too, because we have, and on the site, I always recommend that everybody take the assessment to see to what level they're struggling with post-betrayal syndrome. And it makes so much sense because when you're struggling, you're in this fight or flight response, and then your immune system is suppressed and you start having digestive issues are so common, and there's lack of sleep, extreme fatigue. I mean, and one thing leads to the next and the next. So what were some of the symptoms that you were having?
Same things. I couldn't sleep. I would wake up sometimes in the middle of the night in horror, and I couldn't quite figure out like sometimes you could know, oh, I had a bad dream or whatever, but I would just be so startled out of my sleep, wringing with sweat, thinking, what happened here? Or not being able to stay asleep. And so waking up at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and I usually get up between 4 and 5, then waking up, not feeling rested. And like you said, having digestive issues. I dropped tons of weight. And I'm a pretty curvy girl, and I like my curves. Now, I try to be fit and eat well, but I had no appetite. I had frequent headaches. Big mood swings, where I would just burst into tears for no reason. I could be in the middle of the grocery store, and I can't even tell you what would trigger me, and waterworks.
And this all makes so much sense on so many levels because, for those of you listening, we had so many episodes where we talk with some incredible health experts who explain how this type of trauma throws off your hormones, wreaks such physical, mental, and emotional havoc. And just trying to get through your day can be almost impossible. And it sounds like that's what was going on with you.
Yeah, and that's where I was, a clump in the chair in my family room, in my stinky PJs and my granny panties, with the throw and the chair just kind of pulled up to my chin.
And how long were you like that for?
Oh, gosh. Consistently, probably for at least 5-6 months. And then, it would ebb and flow because, like I said, I could be functional when I needed to be.
Right. And then do you remember a turning point whether you just made a decision or something happened or you heard something where it just sort of moved the needle on maybe just even getting dressed that day?
Yeah, it was almost like I don't want to even say an epiphany because that's really not the right adjective here. It was just an awakening. Is how I'd like to describe it. It was just an intense thing inside, almost in my gut, just this awakening, like this is not what God and the universe intended for you. Get your ass up from here. It was just this awakening.
Yeah. And then what happened when you had the awakening?
Well, I went, started online. Like, what can I do? And as I always told my kids, who do you control? I knew I could only control me. So I got online. I found some support in a program that I thought at the time, in air quotes, would help save my marriage. It ultimately didn't, but I got in relationship with a coach who I actually still speak to this day. And that was the best relationship I ever got in because that led me to relationship with myself and a deeper understanding of what my purpose was and why I was put here. And through that revelation, then I started to understand and learn about, and that's when I decided to become a coach because I was actually already doing some of this already for others. And I thought, this is what I was put here for, and understanding what my gifts were and moving toward that, just huge revelations and understanding the cycle of change and where I was in that process and how I was showing up. Huge revelations. I can't even tell you how that slingshot me out of the chair, out of the stinky pajamas. I was able to pull up my big girl thong and start taking some steps forward.
And what's so great about that is so often we hear, that how crucial support is when we're trying to heal from something. And we call it a trusted other. And this is whether it's one person, a friend, a very close family member, a therapist, a coach, someone that you can speak with and sort of get this kind of unbiased opinion, because we're so stuck in our head. And it sounds like that's exactly what this coach did for you.
Absolutely. And something else too is just also realizing that I could ask for help. because I'm going to date myself here with you and your audience. You remember this saying like, oh, don't let your slip show, don't let them see you sweat kind of stuff? Mm-hmm. That was ingrained, and that was part of the story, that, you just had to white knuckle it, you just had to suck it up and deal. Mm-hmm. But in the process, realizing that I could ask for help mm-hmm. and ask for what I needed and expect to get it and know that I was worthy of asking and having someone honor that request.
And that's
that was something that I didn't do.
Yeah. And that's an important word that you said right there, just to be worthy of asking. And so often, a lot of our, the trauma happens, and then we start questioning our own worthiness. Like, well, maybe I deserved it somehow, mm-hmm. and which is the mm-hmm. biggest trap right there. So, in reaching out for support, we actually, we can definitely move past that. But what did you notice as you started to heal? How did you even know you were healing? What did you see?
Oh, wow. You know what? And I say this to my clients, and I believe it firmly. It's actually posted on my mirror. I was able to have joy amidst the chaos. Mm. And it doesn't necessarily have to be sustained joy, and I'm running through the field of poppies, mm-hmm. but there were moments of joy. And then there was gratitude. And this was very powerful for me, in that even if my ex was being unkind, the people that I thought should be supporting me weren't, I could look, because I kept a gratitude journal. Mm-hmm. I could look in my gratitude journal and just read that over and realize, okay, you may not like what is happening right now in this moment, but look how rich your life is. Look how abundant you do have it. Mm-hmm. And the more that I was able to do that, and the more that I focused on that, the more things that I saw. I actually even kept what I call the D list, and mm-hmm. and my daughter's first name starts with a K, and a K list. And I kept a list, specific notebook for each mm-hmm. of them. And so when they would say or do something that was kind, that I appreciated, I wrote it in that book. So even though there maybe have been times where they were not kind, or not mm-hmm. meeting that expectation, or not meeting my needs, I could go back to that book and start to see the good mm-hmm. versus the betrayal or the hurt or whatever. I could see the good.
And in those early days, though, that's when we could be really stuck in the trauma. And I could just picture some of my listeners now saying, I really can't find anything to be grateful for. Walk them through, so just for that person who is just struggling to be grateful for where they are. They can't find the meaning. They can't make sense out of it mm-hmm. just yet. How would they start a gratitude practice? What do you suggest for them?
I'd say just get you a special notebook, whether it's a 99-cent something off the shelf or something pretty, whatever moves you. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of each day, write 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. And it doesn't have to be, because when people think gratitude, we think this big, earth-shattering, moving thing. It can be as simple as, I woke up this morning. For me, there were times, I'm grateful that the dog was happy to see me. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was grateful that I had leftovers. And then as I started to write these things down, well, I had leftovers because I had resources to have food. And it was kind of a ripple effect mm-hmm. of mm-hmm. it could be just the simplest of things.
Okay. So it sounds like it was, you saw the coach, from there you started the gratitude journal. And then what happened next? What kind of healing did you notice because of that?
Well, again, as a part of that process and a part of my own process, recognizing and giving myself permission to feel and be aware of my emotions, because mm-hmm. we're not the Dalai Lama. No one's levitating mm-hmm. above the ground, mm-hmm. and certainly I was not. So when I was triggered, whatever triggered me, allowing myself to feel that emotion, allowing myself to be okay with that. I mean, when I dropped my baby off and was moving her into her big girl apartment, and driving home and realizing, oh my gosh, I'm going home to an empty house that my child no longer lives at. This is real. I rolled up with tears. I was like, well, it's not safe to drive with tears in your eyes. So I pulled over. I set a timer. I cried it out, or at least out enough to let some steam out so that I could move a little bit forward.
See, now that's so important, because here's so often these feelings are so painful and so uncomfortable. So we do all we can to numb, avoid, distract, run from them. But like a shadow, we keep running and they're just right behind us. They do not go away until we face them and we feel them and then heal them. So that's great that you just looked at it and realized, and it's so interesting because my oldest just moved out too. So I totally get that experience of, what do you mean you're not living here anymore? So it's very, very, very real. And it's true. Like it's easy to think, well, you know what, just kind of suck it up. That's just the way it is. But whatever the feeling is, if we're feeling it, then it's worthy of giving it attention.
Yeah, and then those feelings, it usually starts with a thought, and then that gives you the feeling, and then either action or non-action, right? And so if you allow yourself to feel, you can at least process the thoughts. Because sometimes when we've had a series of betrayals that are happening, and in my case, happening all at once, you get into those destructive thoughts that we talked about earlier, how you're not worthy and you maybe did something to cause this. Oh, woe is me. Why is this happening to me type things, and really turning inward. But if you can get it up and out, then you can do what I call a flip switch, just to even get you back to neutral. So you can decide how you'd like to show up for the day in that situation versus acting out. And acting in a way that would not honor your values and how you would like to show up.
Beautiful. And when did you notice your health start to change and start to improve?
Gosh, almost right away. In fairly short order, because part of that process was then understanding, well, what are my values? How do I want to show up? And I share with clients that really that piece is so key. And a lot of us don't even know what that is. We kind of just go through life willy-nilly and not really knowing that. But really our values are our GPS for life. And you can use that. It's not like in the car when you're going down a path that you wouldn't want to. We don't have the little lady saying, oh, make a legal U-turn, turn around. But if you've got your values and you know what they are, you can measure the situation or measure what's happening against that. Okay, is this how I want to show up? What value am I honoring? Or if I do it this way, what value is being dishonored?
And here's the beauty. And here's the beauty of crisis and trauma, because so often, and I'm sure you see this too, we're sleepwalking through life, and it takes these traumas to shake us up, wake us up, and have us ask these really important questions and allow us to say, wait a second, I've been kind of sleepwalking and I've been living by default versus design, and maybe I should create something way more powerful. It sounds like that's exactly what you did.
That's exactly right. Because how often do people, like you said, just move through life, letting life happen to them, and instead of creating their life is creating them. And then they wake up near the end of life realizing they don't like the person that they've become. And that's where I was. I was just, a few years before 50, looking in the mirror and like, I don't like that person. I don't even recognize her. And that was probably part of the awakening too. Just like, oh no.
Yeah. So what did it lead to?
Well, it led me from going, from being a stay-at-home mom for many years to launching another business. I've since I co-authored a book. I've signed to do another one. I've been a contributor in another person's book. I am doing speaking engagements, and I'm having an impact on women who also find themselves overwhelmed and, a hot mess because their inner critic, their gremlin is running the show. And so they feel blocked because of, either in their personal life, their business or whatever. And I'm helping them flip the switch and step it back into their power like I did.
And it sounds like you're totally living on purpose. And I see this so often, no matter what the crisis, no matter what the trauma, when you've healed from it, maybe you had some disease and you figured out a way to heal, or maybe you just, you lost all your money and you figured out, what you all of a sudden created your new business and it takes off, or healing from some kind of trauma. And then once you reach that other side, it's almost like you feel this obligation to share it because you know the dark side of it. And if you found a way to move through it, it's like, how do you not share that with everybody who's struggling?
Exactly. And that was part of the byproduct of this betrayal. I always say there's a ripple effect of betrayal. Now, granted, some of that can be negatively felt, but there's also some positive ripple effects of betrayal. And one of them, at least for me, was really finding and understanding my gift. And I can now say that from the roots of my hair to the tips of my toes, my gift that God put me here to do is to share my capacity to love. And how do I do that? By what I just said, helping other women find theirs.
And what were the other gifts from your betrayal?
Oh, gosh, learning patience. Patience with self and patience with others. Learning forgiveness. I will never forget, for over 3 years, month after month, I went to court for my dad's case. There were 2 defendants in that case, and another group that were harassing me month after month. I had to file a restraining order against these individuals. And the family member of one of the defendants, she would say unkind things. She would purposely sit by me in the gallery. But I learned for true forgiveness, because when it came time for me to give the impact statement to the court, I could have got up there and spewed anger and hatred and resentment, and it might have made me feel better in the moment. But I went back to my life GPS. What did I value? Truth, freedom, family. My dad wouldn't have wanted that. He was a mentor in the community. He would have wanted me to speak to those young men about how their life went wrong. And I was able to do that very powerfully because I learned forgiveness. And even when this person who had been harassing me and being unkind for almost 3 years, finally, after all this time, said to me, very cynically, by the way, "Oh, sorry for your loss," after her family member had been, accepted a plea deal. The old way of being, I would have wanted to slap the teeth out of her mouth and say some things that were unkind and call her everything but a child of God. But instead, now I knew I had feelings going on, but I was able to say thank you and just forgive.
And you know what? Forgive anybody who has healed from trauma and has done the work of forgiveness realizes it's just a word until you do it. Was there, what was your forgiveness process? Was there was it a process? Was it like, how were you able to forgive?
For me, the forgiveness piece is more about, I'm going to be honest, more about me than the other person. Because usually what someone says or does to you is about them, but how you hear it and receive it is about you. And so that forgiveness piece was really honoring me, turning it to self-love. Because if I did not let go of resentment and hatred and all those catabolic, draining, destructive feelings, that dishonored me. That put me in a place of dis-ease. That caused me pain and strife and all of the physical things that come along with that. And I was done with that.
And and it's interesting because some people think that forgiveness is just this one big grand, like, ta-da, and you forgive. Yeah. And what we found is it's more like in layers and stages, and you work on it and you get closer to it. But it sounds like once you really made that decision to forgive, you know it by how you feel. And it sounds like it felt like the right decision for you. Yeah.
I mean, again, another ripple effect and cut by 1,000 betrayal cuts was when the second defendant was sentenced. I was actually I was out of town and at a speaking engagement. And this was the third state's attorney who had assured me that we could, have this guy plead to first-degree murder. But instead, the day that they knew I wasn't going to be in court, I got a call saying, well, we can no longer prove first degree, so we're just going to have him plead to the robbery. Mm-hmm. Imagine me standing there. Mm. I wasn't able to be there. That was a betrayal. I felt like, okay, they went behind my back. That was the story. Mm. Oh my gosh, what has changed that they, nothing's changed, that you said all this time that you could have him plead to the first degree, and now all of a sudden you can't. It felt very much like they just wanted to get the case off the books because it had been over 3 years at that point.
Right. So how'd you make sense out of that one?
Well, one of my coaches, and I usually have multiple coaches at any given time, she happened to be at the event, and she came out into the hallway, I think, looking for me or going to the bathroom or something. And she saw my face, and she immediately came over to me, and she goes, "Are you okay?" She mouthed, "Are you okay?" And I'm shaking my head. And so after I hung up the phone, I kind of briefed her on what happened. We went to the bathroom. We hugged and cried it out. I dried my face. Again, I set a timer. It's like, okay, I'm going to be speaking in a little bit here, a half an hour. Okay, cry this out for 10 minutes, get it up and out. Mm-hmm. How do you want to show up? Going back to those values in my GPS. Went and did what I needed to do. And then later I needed to come back and revisit that and say, okay, how do you want to show up in this? Mm-hmm. Are you going to rant and rave and make a fuss? Just what do you want to do? And that is an alignment with what you value and how you want to show up. And then I was able to chart my way to a response that was in alignment with what and who I wanted to be.
And, I think it was because you gave yourself that space too. You gave yourself that, those 10 minutes just to recoup and think it through. So, I think we're so reactive, and it's in that reaction, we're not making the right decisions. But in just taking those 10 minutes that you needed, you could think just so much more clearly. Rachell, what do you want to make sure everybody knows before we wrap up?
That you do not have to be a victim to your circumstance, no matter what they are. Even if they're piled on and piled a mile high, and you're dealing with betrayal within betrayal within betrayal, you do not have to be a victim to your circumstances. You do not have to undervalue the power that you have within and give the power to the obstacle. You absolutely have everything you need right now today to be able to move forward in a way that feels in line with who you like to be. You just have to choose it.
I love that. And you know what? You're such a beautiful example of post-betrayal transformation, which is what my study showed. When we heal from betrayal, and we've recovered physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, I don't believe there's anyone stronger, because not only do we do the rebuilding of what was lost, but we've created this empowered, wise, just brilliant version of ourselves that never would have been there had all that trauma not happened. And
exactly.
And
you have the tools in your toolbox now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see it, because even in the study, we learned that the ones who avoided or distracted or numbed, they did not heal nearly as much as the ones who did the work and found the right way for them. And it sounds like through getting great coaches and gratitude and taking that time and facing it and feeling it, that was sort of a combination of your recipe. And it's really whatever it is that helps you heal. So where do we go to learn more about you?
Well, you can go to my website, and that is levelupthe4life.coach. You can go there and you can download a free mini training that's going to help you get to this awareness, help you flip the switch when you've got those destructive thoughts going on. And so that's how you can get a hold of me. And again, Debbie, thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story with your audience. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, wonderful. And everybody listening, if Rachell can heal from 1,000 cuts, 1,000 representations of betrayal, you can too. So thank you so much for just sharing your time with us. And you just shed such a beautiful light on how possible and probable and predictable it could be to heal. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I loved Rachell's awareness around what she needed to do to begin healing from her traumas. And it seemed she had a particular recipe: support, gratitude, time to think before reacting, and forgiveness. Sounds like a winning combination to me. Stay in touch with Rachell by going to levelupforlife.coach, and we'll have all of her information in the show notes at pbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. Face it, feel it, heal it. You may have heard me say that before, but it's truly the only way to heal. Our pain stays with us when we refuse to face it. And I get it. The pain may be so bad that we want to do almost anything to avoid it. But when we do that, it keeps it in place much longer. Just like Rachell, when we face it, we move through it, however long it takes. But what I know for sure is that it always brings us to a place of healing and clarity. Now, it's hard to think clearly when we're struggling with post-betrayal syndrome, so take the quiz to see what symptoms are lingering. Just go to pbtinstitute.com/quiz and let us support you. Go to Facebook and join our group, Women Hacking Betrayal, where we give information, tools, and support to help you move forward and heal once and for all. Can't wait to be with you next time, and here's to your breakthrough.